My name is Elijah Caldwell. I own a construction materials business here in Atlanta, Georgia. I started small with just one little storefront downtown, but today I have 3 branches spread across the metro region. I worked hard all my life to build everything I have. But what we construct with so much effort doesn't always stay standing, as I was to discover in the most painful way. What I'm going to share today is something I never imagined I'd go through. It's a story I kept bottled up inside for a long time, but maybe it can help someone else who's dealing with something similar, or at least serve as a warning. Sometimes we think we know the people we share our lives with, only to discover we've been building on false ground. If you're just starting this video, drop a like to brighten this old heart. Subscribe to the Grandpa's Diaries channel so you don't miss my next life stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there now. It truly makes me happy to know which little corner you're listening from and the moment of the day you pressed play. It all started one cold winter's Sunday, the kind of deep chill we get here in North Georgia. Man, that cold went right to the bone. Serena, my wife, had cooked a really special meal. That Sunday gumbo only she knew how to make, with the rice cooked just right and the chicken and sausage perfectly seasoned. Our kids, Simone and Jamal, were home. Simone was already a business school graduate and worked with me at the company. Jamal was still in college studying engineering. And we sat down at the table, just as we did every Sunday. It was a tradition in our house. On Sunday night, family gathered around the table, and after dinner, a nice glass of good Kentucky bourbon for digestion. But that Sunday was different. I noticed a strange tension in the air when Serena started serving the food, a different kind of smile on her face. I knew that look. It was the same one she had when she was planning a surprise. "I have some news to share," she said, looking at everyone at the table, but holding my gaze a little longer. My heart jumped, though I didn't know why. Maybe it was just a bad feeling. "We're pregnant," she announced, her eyes shining. "We're going to have our 3rd child." Simone and Jamal exploded with joy. They hugged their mother and asked a million questions. I just stood there, as if time had frozen, along with the winter outside. I forced a smile. I walked over and embraced Serena. "That's wonderful, honey," I said, kissing her forehead. But inside, a whirlwind was forming. How could I possibly be the father of that child when I hadn't touched my wife in 2 years? Since that huge fight we had over the company's finances, we had been sleeping in separate bedrooms. Our marriage had become a silent partnership, maintained purely for appearances and routine. That night, while everyone celebrated, I smiled on the outside and bled on the inside. The cruelest lie I had ever heard was being told with the most natural ease in the world. And the worst part was, it wasn't just for me, but for our children, too. When I finally went to bed, I couldn't close my eyes. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how I had gotten to this point, how the man who built a business from scratch, who faced economic downturns and overcame adversity, was now being deceived in his own home. That night, I decided I wouldn't just be another victim in this story. I was going to take control of the situation. That's when I began a journey I never imagined taking in my life. A path of painful discoveries, but also of ultimate liberation. My childhood and youth were defined by hard work and few privileges. I was born right here in Atlanta, the son of a small hardware store owner. My father, Earl Caldwell, was a man of few words and great discipline. He got up before the sun and came home when it was dark. A person who wants to get ahead in life has to out-hustle everyone else, he would always say, while counting the cash in the register. Our house was modest, on the older side of the city. I remember the strong, rich aroma of the French roast coffee my mother, Dorothy, would brew early in the morning, blended with the smell of her fresh, homemade biscuits. That smell was the sign that another workday was beginning. In the winter, the cold would cover the patio, and we'd have to break the thin layer of ice that formed in the wash basin just to do laundry. From a young age, I learned the value of work. By age 12, I was already helping my dad at the store after school. I loaded supplies, helped customers, and made deliveries on my bike. The city wasn't as spread out then, but I knew every street, every back alley. I delivered nails, hinges, and tools to both rich and poor homes. It was there. I began to dream of having my own business. I wasn't the best student in school, but I excelled at math. I always had an easy time with numbers, maybe because I spent so much time helping with the store accounts. While my friends dreamed of becoming doctors or lawyers, I wanted to be a merchant, like my father, but bigger, much, much bigger. My teenage years came with their own challenges. While other young men had time to play basketball at the community court or try to talk to girls at the mall, I split my time between studying and working. Sometimes, I confess, I felt a pang of envy, but my father always reminded me, "Elijah, those who sow early harvest later." On the weekends, the family gathered for traditional Sunday barbecue. That was our time to relax. My father would fire up the grill early, preparing those ribs that cooked slowly over the smoke. My mother made her famous potato salad, the one everyone asked for the recipe to. The whole neighborhood knew the smell of our Sunday BBQ. "Man, Earl really outdid himself today," they'd say when passing by the house. I finished high school without much fanfare and decided not to go to college immediately. I wanted to work, save money, and start my own business. My father was initially disappointed. He had always dreamed of having a professional in the family. "At least get a technical degree," he insisted. So I did. I studied accounting at night while working during the day. It was during that time that Atlanta was hit by a terrible regional flash flood. The rising waters swept away homes, dreams, and lives. Our store was under 3 feet of water for days, a total loss. I saw my father, a strong man, cry for the first time, sitting on the ruined steps of the shop. "Everything I built," he mumbled, staring into the distance. That was a decisive moment in my life. While others gave up and left, we stayed, rolled up our sleeves, and rebuilt. I learned right then that life can take everything from you in an instant, but it cannot take your will to start over. With the insurance money and some savings, we reopened the store, smaller, more modest, but alive. I worked with my father for a few more years, learning every detail of the business. He taught me that a good merchant knows his products, but a great merchant knows his customers. Remember their names, ask about their family, know when the son is graduating or the daughter is getting married, he'd say. At night, after closing the store, I stayed up, doing the books, planning, and dreaming of my own venture. When I was in my early 20s, my father called me in for a serious talk. "Elijah, you're ready to fly solo," he said as we shared a glass of bourbon on the back porch. "I don't want you stuck in this little storefront for the rest of your life. You have ideas that are too big for this small place." It was with his blessing and a few $1,000s in savings that I opened my first business. A construction supply store downtown, small, just me, and 2 employees. I started by selling the basics: concrete, sand, lumber. I worked sun up to sundown. I opened early, closed late. I slept little, but I dreamed big. In the early days, I almost gave up several times. Competition was fierce. Suppliers didn't always meet deadlines. Customers haggled over every last penny. But I remembered my father's words. Business is like a plant, Elijah. It needs time, water, and patience to grow. It was during that period of struggle and growth that I met Serena. But that is another part of my story, one that deserves to be told with calm, because it was the beginning of something that I never would have imagined how it would end. I met Serena at the annual church homecoming fall festival. I didn't usually go to many community events. I was too busy focused on the store. But my mother insisted so much that I finally went, more to please her than for my own interest. You only think about that store, Elijah. You need to meet people, live a little, she said while adjusting my shirt collar. It was a chilly December evening with that fine mist that leaves everything damp. The colorful booths, the smell of funnel cakes, and spiced cider filled the courtyard. Strands of colored lights strung on wires swayed in the wind. I remember standing near the game booth when I saw her for the first time. Serena was volunteering at the homemade dessert booth. She wore a floral dress and had her hair pulled back in a ponytail. What struck me most was her smile. She had a way of smiling that lit up her entire face. She was helping an elderly woman with a patience and kindness that charmed me. I walked past the booth several times, trying to look nonchalant. The third time, I finally worked up the nerve and stopped to buy a treat. I'll take a slice of the sweet potato pie, I asked, trying to sound casual. She smiled and asked, "Just one? You're not going to share?" I replied that I was alone, and she teased, "That's a shame, because I made these pies, and I wanted to know if they were any good." I ended up buying half a dozen slices just to make her happy. We talked for a few minutes right there. I learned she was a middle school math teacher at a public school. She had moved to Atlanta from New York City for college and ended up staying. Unlike me, Serena was talkative, outgoing, and full of stories. When I told her about my store, she was genuinely interested. She asked questions. She wanted to understand how it worked. "You talk about concrete and lumber like they are treasures," she laughed once. Our courtship was fast and intense. In less than a year, we were planning the wedding. My parents adored Serena from the start. My mother, especially, saw in her the daughter she never had. "That girl is special, Elijah. Don't let her get away," she advised while we prepared the traditional Sunday gumbo. The wedding was simple, held at the same church where we met. Serena wore a white dress her mother had helped her pick out. I was sweating bullets inside my rented suit, nervous. Not about the ceremony, but about the commitment I was taking on. I promised myself that day that I would do everything possible to give her a good, comfortable life. The first few years of marriage were a mix of adjustment and a lot of work. And we rented a small apartment close to the store. I left early and came back late. Serena continued teaching, and in her spare time, she helped me with the business administration. She had a knack for paperwork. She organized everything with an efficiency that impressed me. It was her idea to expand into electrical and plumbing supplies. If the customer is already buying the concrete and lumber from you, why not buy the wire and pipe too? She suggested one night over dinner. She was right. The store began to grow slowly but steadily. When Simone, our first daughter, was born, it was a moment of pure joy. Serena decided to stop working for a while to dedicate herself to the baby. "The first few years are the most important," she'd say, while cradling our little girl. I agreed, even though I missed her help at the store. I hired another employee and pressed on. Our routine changed completely. Nights were now ruled by the baby's schedule. Serena nursed, changed diapers, and sang lullabies. I came home late, exhausted, but always made time to hold little Simone. I loved it when she grabbed my finger with that tiny hand. 3 years later, Jamal arrived, and now we were 4. Our apartment felt small, so we decided to buy some land and build our own home. It took time. It was a slow process. We built as money allowed. Serena joked that it was good to own a construction supply store during all this. The business kept growing. I opened a second branch on the other side of the city. I hired more employees. The children grew up, went to school, and established their own routines. Serena went back to teaching part-time. On vacations, we managed to take small trips to the beaches of Miami or Key West. Our marriage seemed solid. We had our disagreements, of course, like any couple. Serena complained that I worked too much, that I wasn't paying enough attention to the family. I argued that all that work was precisely to give them comfort and security. Money isn't everything, Elijah, she'd often say. The kids need their father present, not just what their father's money can buy. I tried to adjust, coming home earlier, participating more in the kids' school life. But there was always a critical delivery, a special client, or a negotiation that couldn't wait. The business grew, and with it, my responsibilities. When Simone turned 16, we threw a huge party. Serena wanted something special for our girl. She only turned 16 once, she insisted. I rented the city's best event space. I hired the most expensive catering service, a live band. Nothing was too good for my princess. At that party, watching Serena beam as I did the father-daughter dance with Simone, I felt completely fulfilled. We had built a good life together. Our own home, healthy and educated children, and a thriving business. I thought I had achieved everything I dreamed of when I was just a kid helping out at my dad's little shop. Little did I know that behind that captivating smile that had first charmed me at the dessert booth years ago, a shadow was beginning to form that would eventually darken our entire life together. In time, our business grew even more. We opened the third branch and expanded into finishing materials, offering flooring, tiles, and bathroom fixtures. The name Caldwell Construction Supply became a recognized name in the region. Large construction companies started signing contracts with us, and I had to build a specialized sales team to handle them. Serena was still teaching, but less and less. With the company's growth, we needed someone reliable to manage the administration. "Why don't you hire a professional administrator?" she suggested during one dinner. "Someone with formal training in that area." "But I have you," I replied, half joking, half serious. She smiled that smile I loved. "Elijah, I'm a teacher, not an administrator. Besides, with the company getting bigger, you need someone with technical knowledge." That's how we hired Tyrone Sterling, our first full-time CPA. He had a degree in accounting with a specialization in financial management, and he arrived full of ideas on how to better organize our finances. Serena interviewed him and approved the hiring. "He seems competent and has good references," she said after the interview. Tyrone was a reserved man, always in a suit and tie, neatly trimmed hair, clean-shaven, married, and a father of 2 young girls. He seemed like the perfect employee, punctual, organized, and dedicated. In meetings, he always came prepared with detailed spreadsheets, charts, and projections. "This guy is going places," I commented to Serena after a particularly impressive presentation he gave on our cash flow. Simone, our eldest daughter, decided to major in business administration. I wanted to help expand the family business, Dad, she said at the dinner where she announced her choice. My chest swelled with pride. My life's work would have continuity through her. Jamal, on the other hand, chose civil engineering. That way we can verticalize the business, he explained, using a term I barely knew. We can not only sell materials, but also provide consulting, and maybe even build. Seeing my children interested in the business I had built with so much effort was immensely satisfying. In family gatherings, we now discussed business strategies alongside the daily news, and Serena sometimes complained that all we ever talked about was work. There's more to life than just lumber and concrete, you know, she'd tease. We bought a bigger house in an upscale suburb of the city. Serena fulfilled her dream of having a swimming pool and a large grilling patio for entertaining friends and family. I fulfilled mine, a study with solid oak shelves to house the technical books and business magazines I collected. Our lives seemed perfect from the outside. We were admired in the city. Elijah and Serena, that couple who owns the construction supply stores, people would comment. We were invited to all the important events, baby showers, weddings, graduation parties. Simone graduated with honors and came to work for us. We had her learn every area of the business, starting with the basics: customer service, inventory, and sales. She needs to know everything from the ground up, I explained. Serena thought I was being too hard on our daughter. She has a degree, Elijah. She doesn't need to be hauling bags of concrete. But Simone surprised me. She didn't complain. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work. In no time, she knew every product, every supplier, and every special customer. The employees respected her, not because she was the owner's daughter, but because of the competence she showed. Jamal was halfway through college when he landed an internship at a major construction firm. He came home excited, talking about projects, new techniques, and innovative materials they were using. Dad, we need to bring this into our stores, he'd say, enthusiastically. Around that time, Serena began to change. Subtly at first, then more obviously. She was more distant, more concerned with her appearance. She bought new clothes, changed her hairstyle, and started going to the gym. I'm just taking care of myself, she said when I asked. When you reach a certain age, you need to be more mindful. I didn't see a problem with it. On the contrary, I thought it was good that she was dedicating more time to herself. Serena had always taken care of everyone, me, the kids, the house, her teaching, and little of herself. She deserved this moment. Our wedding anniversary was approaching, 20-something years together. I planned a surprise, a trip to Savannah, Georgia, a 5-star hotel, everything she deserved. I asked Simone to help me with the preparations. Mom will love it, Dad, she assured me, excited about the plan. The week of the trip, we had an important meeting with a major supplier. Tyrone presented the company's numbers, demonstrating why we deserved better payment terms and larger discounts due to our purchase volume. Serena was present, as always. She attended all the important financial meetings. I noticed something strange that day. The glances Serena and Tyrone exchanged seemed to contain more than simple professional agreement. At one point, when Tyrone was talking about growth projections, Serena smiled in a way I knew well. It was the smile she used to reserve just for me. I shook my head, pushing the thought away. It was my imagination playing tricks. Serena and I had built a life together. We had adult children, a prosperous company, and a beautiful home. Why would I distrust her after all these years? The trip to Savannah was nice, but not what I expected. Serena seemed distant, constantly checking her cell phone. When I asked if everything was all right, she dodged the question. It's just the school coordinator, work stuff, she quickly explained, putting the phone back in her purse. We returned home, and routine resumed. The company was growing, the children were developing professionally, and life continued its seemingly normal course. But something inside me had shifted. A small seed of doubt had been planted, and without me realizing it, it was beginning to sprout. It was around that time that I bought a hardbound notebook. I don't know why. Maybe I already sensed that I would need to record events, dates, and facts. Or perhaps it was just the businessman in me, accustomed to documenting everything. What I didn't realize was that this simple notebook would become the repository of evidence of a betrayal I never expected to face. A betrayal that would forever change the way I saw not only Serena, but the entire world we had built together. It was a late autumn evening when I had the first concrete suspicion that something was very wrong. The sky had that orange hue that gives Atlanta a melancholic feel. I had left the office earlier than usual, which was rare for me, and decided to stop by the grocery store to buy some wine. I wanted to surprise Serena with a special dinner, just the two of us. The kids no longer lived at home. Simone had her own apartment near the main store, and Jamal shared a place with friends near the university. In the beverage aisle of the supermarket, I ran into Ms. Lords, our neighbor of many years. She was a friendly woman, the kind who always brings a dessert when you're sick. "Why, Elijah, what a surprise to see you here this late," she commented, while picking out some juice. "Serena told me you always work late on Tuesdays." That caught me off guard. "Tuesdays?" I asked, confused. "Yes, she always mentions that Tuesday is the day you get home latest. That's why she takes advantage of it to go to that ceramics class. I even offered to drive her once, but she said she goes with a colleague from school." I smiled and changed the subject, but that comment hammered away in my head. Serena had never mentioned any ceramics class, and Tuesday was not specifically a day when I worked later than others. My schedule varied based on need. At home, I didn't mention anything. I prepared the dinner as planned. We opened the wine. We talked about trivial things. Serena seemed normal, maybe a little more animated than usual. She talked about her students, a new project at school, and Simone, who was thinking about getting an MBA. "And you haven't been doing anything different lately? Any new class? Any new activity?" I asked casually, pouring more wine into her glass. Serena hesitated for a second, so quickly I almost didn't notice. "Nothing special. School takes up a lot of time. You know how it is?" It was that night that I began to write things down in the notebook, date and time, what Ms. Lords had said, and Serena's response. It seemed silly, but something told me I needed to record it. The following week, on an impulse, I decided to leave work early again. It was a Tuesday. I stopped by the house, but Serena wasn't there. I called her cell phone, and it went straight to voicemail. I called the school. They said she had left at the normal time, around 5 in the afternoon. I waited at home, trying to control my anxiety. Serena arrived around 8 that night, carrying shopping bags from the mall. I decided to take the chance to pick up a few things we needed, she explained, avoiding looking directly at me while putting away the purchases. I opened the notebook again and recorded date, time she left school, time she arrived home, her explanation. The following weeks were a silent torment. Without Serena knowing, I started paying attention to everything. Schedules, calls, messages. She had changed her phone password. "The students started playing games on it when I left it on my desk," she justified when I asked casually. Our intimate life, which was already infrequent, practically vanished. There was always an excuse: tiredness, a headache, papers to grade. Then, after an argument about the company's finances, I wanted to reinvest more. She thought we should enjoy the fruits of our labor more. Serena suggested we sleep in separate bedrooms for a while. "It's just until we sort out these differences," she said. "You snore so much. I sleep badly, and I'm irritable the next day. It's not healthy." I agreed. more out of exhaustion than because I thought it was a good idea. That night, lying alone in the bed we had shared for so many years, I took the notebook and wrote Day 1 in separate rooms. I don't know when or if we'll ever sleep together again. In the following months, the distance between us only grew. At the company, however, Serena seemed more involved than ever. She wanted to participate in all financial meetings, know every detail of the contracts, and be present during important negotiations. Tyrone, the CPA, was always by her side, explaining spreadsheets, showing charts, and suggesting strategies. It was Simone who first tipped me off. She's an observant daughter, always attentive to details. She came into my office one day and closed the door, something she rarely did. "Dad, I need to tell you something, but I don't know how." I set down the papers I was analyzing. "What is it, honey? Did something happen?" She sat down nervously, playing with the ends of her hair, as she had done since she was little when she was anxious. "It's about Mom and Tyrone. I've noticed things." My heart sped up, but I kept my calm. "What kind of things?" "Looks, smiles, quiet conversations. Last week, I walked into the conference room without knocking, and they were really close, looking at the same paper. When they saw me, they quickly pulled apart like they were startled." I took a deep breath. "It might be nothing, Simone. They work closely on financial matters. It's normal for them to be close." "There's more," she continued, even more uncomfortable. "Last Tuesday, I left work early to deal with an issue at my apartment and saw Mom's car parked at the Hampton Inn near the I-285 interchange. Tyrone's car was just a few spaces away. The Hampton Inn, a mid-range hotel used mainly by commercial travelers and couples who don't want to be seen. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, as if someone were squeezing my heart with a cold hand. "Are you sure they were their cars?" Simone nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I am sure, Dad. I know both cars well." I was so shocked that I took a picture. She reluctantly took out her phone and showed me the image. There was no doubt. It was Serena's car and Tyrone's car parked at the same hotel on a Tuesday afternoon. That night, I wrote several pages in my notebook, recording not only facts, but also feelings. The pain of betrayal, the anger, the humiliation. How could I have been so blind? How did I not realize what was happening right under my nose in my own company? I didn't confront Serena immediately. Something inside me wanted more evidence. I wanted to be absolutely sure before blowing up the world we had built. Or perhaps it was just cowardice, fear of facing the truth, of hearing the confirmation of my suspicions from her mouth. In the following weeks, without anyone knowing, I hired a private investigator, a discreet man recommended by a lawyer friend. He guaranteed me total confidentiality and efficiency. "I'll uncover the truth, whatever it is," he promised at our first meeting. The detective began following Serena on Tuesdays. The information arrived in weekly reports, along with photos, receipts, and evidence. Serena would leave school at 5, drive to a coffee shop in Midtown where she would meet Tyrone. They would talk for half an hour, then drive in separate cars to the Hampton Inn. They would leave 2 hours later, also separately. Every report was a stab. Every photo, every time meticulously logged by the detective, was a confirmation of my worst nightmare. The affair had been going on for over a year, according to what he managed to find through the hotel's records. Over a year. While I was working myself to the bone to keep the business growing, to secure our children's to give us a comfortable life, Serena was having an affair with our CPA. I started logging other things too. Small, strange expenses on the corporate card she used, Gifts she claimed to have bought for school colleagues, weekend trips for teacher conferences that never appeared on the school's official calendar. Everything was meticulously recorded in my notebook, which had now become a diary of betrayal. Pages and pages documenting how my marriage, which I thought was solid as concrete, was turning out to be fragile as a house of cards. And then, one Sunday morning, Serena dropped the bomb that changed everything. That Sunday dawned with a fine drizzle, typical of autumn. The gray sky perfectly matched the state of my soul. I woke up early. As always, even on weekends, the habit of a lifetime of work wouldn't let me stay in bed for long. I brewed a pot of strong coffee, the kind only a southern man truly appreciates, and stood on the patio, looking out at the garden Serena tended so carefully. It was there, lost in thought, that she found me. She was dressed too nicely for a Sunday at home. Her hair was impeccable, her makeup light but carefully applied, and she wore an outfit I didn't recognize. Probably one of the many recent purchases she had made without showing me. "Elijah, I need to tell you something," she said, sitting in the chair beside me. There was a strange glint in her eyes, a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. I poured another cup of coffee and handed it to her, an automatic gesture of intimacy that now seemed void of meaning. "What is it?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral, although my heart was already racing. Serena took a sip of coffee, took a deep breath, and then, looking me directly in the eye, she spoke the sentence that would forever be etched in my memory. "I'm pregnant, Elijah. We're going to have our third child." The world stopped. The sound of the drizzle hitting the roof, the birds singing in the garden, everything vanished. All I could hear was the blood pulsing in my temples. Pregnant. Serena pregnant. The woman I hadn't touched in 2 years, telling me she was pregnant. I felt the bitter taste of bile rising in my throat. It wasn't just the coffee. It was the taste of betrayal, being exposed right in my face, served up as if it were a blessing, a joy to be celebrated. "Elijah, did you hear what I said?" she asked, frowning at my silence. "We're having a baby. Isn't that wonderful?" I swallowed hard, fighting to maintain my composure. I remembered my decision not to reveal that I knew everything. It wasn't time yet. I needed to see how far this farce, this blatant lie would go. "I'm surprised," I finally managed to say. "How did this happen?" A slight blush colored her cheeks. "Well, Elijah, how do all the babies happen?" She let out a nervous little laugh. "I know we haven't been close in a while, but remember that night after the company anniversary party? We had a bit too much champagne." "The company anniversary party 2 months ago? A night when I had stayed late at the office resolving issues with a supplier who had delivered defective material? A night when I hadn't even gone to that party?" It was like being struck by lightning. Not enough that she was betraying me, not enough that she was having an affair with Tyrone. Now she was inventing a night that never existed. She was creating a false memory to justify an impossible pregnancy. How deep was her capacity for lying? For creating an alternate reality? But I kept up the act. I smiled, a smile that didn't reach my eyes, and took her hands. "That's quite the news. I think we need some time to process this." "I wanted to tell the kids today," she said excitedly. "I invited them over for dinner. Simone and Jamal. My children." She intended to involve them in this monstrous lie, too. To make them believe they were getting a sibling, when in reality... I agreed, feeling like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. "Let's tell them." The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Serena was in the kitchen, humming, as she prepared the Sunday meal. Gumbo, guacamole, those biscuits she made so well. I moved around like an automaton, helping set the table, opening a bottle of wine I wouldn't drink. Simone arrived first, bringing a dessert. She hugged me tight, as she always did. I could feel a slight tremor in her, probably sensing what Serena wanted to announce, given the sudden invitation to dinner. Jamal arrived soon after on his motorcycle, helmet still in hand when he walked in. "Hey, family gathering on a Sunday, huh? What are we celebrating?" he joked, unaware of the irony in his words. We sat down at the table, just as we had so many times over the years. The steaming food, the familiar smell of Serena's seasoning, the smiles, the conversations about the week. A picture of a perfect family, except for the monster of the lie sitting invisibly between us. After everyone had served themselves, Serena exchanged a look with me. I understood the signal. It was time for the announcement. She cleared her throat, smiled at the children, and then, with a voice choked with emotion, whether genuine or rehearsed, I'll never know, she spoke. "Simone, Jamal, your father and I have some wonderful news to share." Simone tensed, almost imperceptibly. Jamal kept eating, distracted. "I'm pregnant," Serena announced, her eyes shining. "We're going to have another child." Jamal's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Simone visibly paled. "Pregnant?" Jamal repeated, incredulous. But wow, are you sure?" Simone asked, looking directly at me, not Serena. There was an unspoken question in her eyes, a doubt she couldn't express in front of everyone. "Absolutely," Serena replied, beaming. "I took the test yesterday. I still need to see the doctor, of course, but there's no doubt." Jamal got up, went around the table, and hugged his mother. "This is incredible. I'm going to have a little brother or sister. I'm too old to be a big brother now, though. I'll look like an uncle." He laughed, genuinely happy, completely oblivious to the web of lies being woven. Simone remained seated, watching me with a look that mixed confusion and worry. She knew, or at least suspected. She knew the situation between Serena and me too well to believe that story. "Aren't you going to congratulate Dad, too?" Serena asked, noticing that all the attention was on her. It was the hardest moment of my life. Getting up, smiling, accepting Jamal's enthusiastic hug, and Simone's hesitant one, faking joy, when inside I was being consumed by a storm of rage, pain, and humiliation. "I am very happy," I lied, the words coming out of my mouth like stones. It was quite a surprise. The meal continued, now filled with animated plans for the future baby. How we would rearrange the house, what it would be like to have a newborn after so many years, and possible names. Serena talked nonstop. Jamal joked about being an older brother with a father's age, and Simone watched everything in silence, her eyes darting between Serena and me, as if trying to decipher a riddle. When the children finally left, I was left alone on the patio again, watching the rain, which was now falling harder. Serena came to join me, radiant, as she hadn't been in a long time. "They were so happy," she commented, sitting in the chair next to me. "Jamal especially always wanted a younger sibling." "Serena," I said. My voice was surprisingly calm, considering the volcano roaring inside me. "How do you expect me to believe this child is mine, when we haven't slept together in over 2 years?" Her smile wavered for an instant, but she quickly recovered. "What are you talking about? Of course, it hasn't been that long. And what about that night after the party?" "What party?" I cut her off, still keeping my voice controlled. "The party you invented. The party I didn't even attend because I was solving supplier problems late into the night." Her face lost color, For a moment, I saw panic in her eyes, but Serena was always quick to recover. "You drank too much that night. I'm not surprised you don't remember it well," she tried, but her voice no longer had the same conviction. I shook my head slowly, feeling a strange calmness wash over me. The decision had already been made. The plan was already formed in my head. "We're going to have a gender reveal party," I said, surprising her with the change of subject. "A party for what?" she asked, confused. "A gender reveal party. To announce the baby's sex to all the family and friends. Simone told me about this. It's what everyone does these days. A big party, blue or pink balloons, all that." Serena's face lit up again. "But it's too early to know the sex. When we know, I want to throw the biggest party this city has ever seen," I insisted. "You deserve it. This baby deserves it." She smiled. That smile that had once made my heart race, and which now only caused me revulsion. "You're really happy about the baby, aren't you?" I smiled back. In my eyes was a determination she mistook for joy. "More than you can imagine. This baby is going to change our lives forever." That night, alone in my room, I opened the notebook and wrote extensively. It was no longer just a record of dates and facts. It was the detailed plan for the biggest reveal Atlanta would ever see. But it wouldn't be the sex of a baby that was revealed. It would be the raw, implacable truth about the betrayal, the lie, and the attempt to make me accept another man's child as my own. From that moment on, every step I took was meticulously calculated. Every move was part of a strategy that would culminate in a single moment. The day Serena would understand what it means to play with the intelligence and dignity of Elijah Caldwell. In the weeks following the pregnancy announcement, I lived a double life that I never thought I would be capable of maintaining. On the outside, I was the happy husband, about to become a father again at an age when most men are thinking about grandchildren. On the aside, I was a man meticulously focused on documenting, investigating, and preparing the public exposure of a lie that had corroded the foundations of my family. Serena was radiant. The pregnancy seemed to have rejuvenated her. She bought baby magazines and browsed websites for nursery decorations. She talked about the changes we would need to make to the house. I agreed with everything. I suggested renovations, even showing her catalogs of expensive baby furniture we could order. "You're so excited," she commented one morning over coffee. "I never saw you like this with the other pregnancies." "People change, Serena," I replied with an enigmatic smile. "I'm in a different phase of life. I have time to enjoy things now." Meanwhile, without her knowing, I was operating on several fronts. The private investigator continued his work, now with more specific instructions. Document all of Serena and Tyrone's meetings, get hotel records, and audio recordings of conversations, if possible. I discreetly hired one of the best family law attorneys in the state, not in Atlanta, where I would be noticed, but from a firm in Savannah. "I want the most ironclad divorce possible," I explained during our first meeting at a discreet restaurant. "I have a large company, considerable assets. I want to protect my actual children." The lawyer, a man with gray hair and sharp eyes, examined the documentation I had brought, the detective's reports, bank statements showing suspicious expenses, and photos of the hotel encounters. "With this material, we can easily establish infidelity," he affirmed, glancing through the folders. "But you want to wait for the right moment, as I understand it." "Exactly," I confirmed. "The reveal party is already scheduled for 2 months from now." In parallel, I also hired a forensic accountant specializing in identifying financial fraud and manipulation. Tyrone had been our CPA for years. Who was to say he wasn't manipulating the company's numbers for his own benefit and Serena's? The specialist began to discreetly review all the records, balances, and movements from the past few years. At the company, I reorganized some functions without anyone perceiving the real reason. I began to move Tyrone away from the most critical decisions. We created a new finance department. We hired a CFO who would be above him in the hierarchy. We need to professionalize the management more, I explained during a meeting. The company has grown. We can't continue operating like a small family business. Tyrone didn't like it, of course. I saw the poorly disguised irritation in his eyes when I announced the changes. Now, Serena subtly tried to intervene, arguing that he deserved more recognition for his years of work. But I stood firm, shielded by business logic that no one could contest. Simone sensed that something was happening. Always observant, she noticed my movements, the strange meetings, and the changes in the company. One day, she sought me out in my study at home after Serena had left for a doctor's appointment that the detective would later confirm was another meeting with Tyrone. "Dad," she began, closing the door behind her, "what is really going on? This pregnancy story? These changes in the company? I'm worried about you." I looked at my daughter, so intelligent, so much like me in her direct way of addressing issues, and I made a decision. She deserved to know part of the truth. Not all of it. Not yet. "Simone," I said, gesturing to the chair in front of me, "what I'm about to tell you stays between us. Not even your brother can know yet. Understood?" She nodded, her eyes attentive. "I have proof that your mother has been having an affair for over a year with Tyrone." Simone didn't seem surprised. She had already suspected it, after all. "And the baby?" she asked in a low voice. "It's not mine," I replied dryly. "I haven't touched your mother in over 2 years. You know this. We've been sleeping in separate rooms since that fight about the company's finances." She closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the impact of those words. When she opened them again, there was determination in them. "What are you going to do?" "I have a plan," I replied. "And when the time comes, I'm going to need you." Meanwhile, preparations for the gender reveal party moved forward. Serena had invited practically all of Atlanta, friends, family, work colleagues, her school colleagues, neighbors. The party would be at the city's most elegant event venue, with professional decorations, top-tier catering, and a special cake ordered from the best bakery. "We don't need all this," she even said once, surprised by my insistence on hiring the best of everything. "It's just a baby shower." "It's not just a baby shower," I replied. "It's a celebration. I want it to be unforgettable." And it would be, but not for the reasons she imagined. The week before the party was particularly intense. I met with my lawyer to finalize the divorce papers, which would be filed immediately after the party. I received the final report from the forensic accountant. To my relief, there were no significant diversions in the company, only some minor inconsistencies that could be explained by incompetence, not necessarily malice. I also modified my will with the help of a discreet notary. I removed Serena as a beneficiary of any asset or right. I divided the company between Simone and Jamal with a specific clause about management. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I didn't leave a single penny to the child who was on the way. That child had a father, and it wasn't me. 2 days before the party, I called Jamal for a talk. Unlike Simone, he hadn't noticed anything amiss. He was always more distracted, more focused on his own projects. I didn't tell him everything. I just prepared the ground. "Son," I said, as we walked through the construction site of the company's new branch, "if anything ever happens to me, I want you to know that everything I did was thinking about your well-being, even when it might seem otherwise." He looked at me, confused. "Dad, is everything all right? You sound like you're saying goodbye." I smiled, putting my hand on his shoulder. "I'm not saying goodbye. I'm just getting ready. Life sometimes surprises us, and we need to be ready to face those surprises." On the eve of the party, Serena was so excited she could barely sleep. I stopped by her room before heading to mine and found her organizing the outfit she would wear. "Tomorrow is going to be a special day," she commented, smiling at me. "The most special day of our lives," I agreed, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't faking it. It truly would be the most significant day of our lives, just not in the way she imagined. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the patio, watching the stars in the clear Atlanta sky, sipping a bourbon, and thinking about everything I had lived through. The years of hard work, building the company, the birth of the children, the happy moments I had with Serena. How did we get to this point? Where did I go wrong? Was there a specific moment when I could have changed the course of this story? I opened my notebook and wrote one last entry before the decisive day. Tomorrow, everything changes. I don't know how I'll feel after the dust settles, but I know I can't continue living this lie. Serena chose this path when she decided to betray me, not only in the bedroom, but in the most basic trust that should exist between two people. By trying to make me accept another man's child as my own, she crossed a line of no return. May God help me do the right thing, not just the easy thing. The morning of the reveal party arrived with a perfect blue sky, the kind Atlanta reserves for its best spring days. I got up early, put on my best clothes, a navy blue suit I reserved for special occasions, and mentally prepared myself for what was coming. Serena was radiant in a new dress, specially bought for the occasion. We left the house together, looking like the perfect couple everyone believed we were. On the way to the event venue, she took my hand and said, "Thank you for all this, Elijah, for being so happy about this baby. I confess I was worried at first. I thought you wouldn't take it well." I squeezed her hand and replied with the rawest truth I had ever spoken. "Don't worry, Serena. Today, everyone will know exactly how I feel about this pregnancy." The venue was immaculate. Pastel-toned balloons hung from the ceiling. Tables were elegantly set, and fresh flowers were in every corner. A large banner read, "He or she, come and see." In the center was a special table with the reveal cake, covered by a glass dome. Inside, the batter would be blue or pink, revealing the baby's sex when cut. At least, that's what Serena believed. Guests began arriving promptly at 4 in the afternoon. Family, friends, company colleagues, Serena's school teachers, neighbors. Practically our entire social circle was there. I estimated there were over 100 people. I greeted each one with a polite smile, presenting myself as the happy husband, about to discover if he would have another son or daughter. Simone arrived early, looking elegant in a modest dress. In her eyes, I perceived the apprehension. She knew something big was about to happen, even if she didn't know exactly what. Jamal came shortly after, excited, carrying a large gift wrapped in colorful paper. Serena hugged him with tears in her eyes. "My first gift for the little sibling," he said proudly. My heart twisted when I saw my son's innocence. He genuinely believed he would have a brother or sister, that our family would grow happily and naturally. For a brief moment, I hesitated. Would it be better to let this lie continue? To spare everyone the public humiliation? But then I saw Tyrone Sterling discreetly enter the venue. He came alone. His wife, who knew nothing, was traveling for work, I'd found out. Our CPA looked uncomfortable, repeatedly adjusting his tie and looking around like someone searching for escape routes. In that instant, all doubt vanished. The truth needed to come out, no matter the cost. Serena circulated among the guests, receiving congratulations, hugs, and gifts. Occasionally, our eyes met, and she smiled. A knowing smile that now seemed like the worst of all betrayals. How could she smile like that, knowing the monstrous lie she was perpetuating. When all the guests were present, the event host hired for the party announced that the moment of revelation was near. Serena called me to stand beside her in front of the table with the cake. Jamal and Simone positioned themselves next to us, forming the perfect picture of the happy family. Before we cut the cake and find out if it's a boy or a girl, the host announced, the father would like to say a few words. Serena looked at me, surprised. This wasn't in the script she had so carefully planned, but she smiled, imagining I would give some emotional speech about the joy of being a father again. I walked up to the small stage set up for the occasion. The room fell silent. All eyes were on me, the successful businessman, the devoted husband, the man who seemingly had everything. "Good evening, everyone," I began. My voice was firm, despite the turmoil in my chest. "I thank each of you for being here at this unique moment in my life." I paused, looking directly at Serena. She was still smiling, not yet perceiving what was about to happen. "As you all know, we are here to celebrate an important announcement, a revelation, you could say." I pulled a small remote control from my pocket. As I pressed the button, a screen slowly descended behind me. Serena frowned, confused. But before revealing the baby's sex, I would like to share some important information. Information that everyone here deserves to know. The silence in the room was absolute. I pressed another button on the remote, and the screen lit up. The first image appeared. Serena and Tyrone entering the Hampton Inn on different days, but at the same times, week after week. A murmur ran through the room. I saw Serena's face turn white. Her eyes widened in panic. Tyrone, who was in a distant corner, looked like he was about to pass out. "For those who don't know him," I continued, my voice still controlled, "this is Tyrone Sterling, CPA for my company for 5 years, married, father of 2 girls, and apparently about to be a father again." On another slide, bank statements showing payments from Serena's corporate card to lingerie stores and expensive restaurants on days she claimed to be at teacher conferences, purchases that were never discussed at home. "The most interesting thing," I continued, now walking slowly across the stage, "is that these meetings began approximately 18 months ago. Coincidentally, the same period during which Serena and I have not had any marital intimacy." The guests were paralyzed. Some looked at the floor in shame. Others couldn't tear their eyes away from the unfolding drama. Simone had her hand over her mouth, shocked, not by the betrayal she already knew, but by the public way I had chosen to expose it. Jamal looked like he had been struck by lightning, completely motionless, his face a mask of disbelief. "Exactly 2 years ago," I continued, relentless, "after an argument about the company's finances, Serena suggested we sleep in separate rooms. It's just temporary," she said. "Since then, we have had no intimate contact. None." Serena took 2 steps toward me, her face contorted in a mix of rage and fear. "Elijah, what are you doing?" she hissed, low enough only for me to hear. I ignored her and continued. "Imagine my surprise when, a few weeks ago, she announced she was pregnant. By me. A miracle, isn't it? Or is it the most brazen of deceptions?" The final slide showed the hotel check-in records, with dates and times meticulously documented, right next to the calendar of medical appointments Serena had left on our refrigerator. The dates matched perfectly. "Ladies and gentlemen, today's reveal party is not about finding out if it's a boy or a girl. It is about revealing the truth. This child is not mine. It cannot be. And Serena knew this when she tried to make me believe otherwise." A deathly silence fell over the room. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. That's how still everyone was. Serena finally reacted. She rushed onto the stage, tears streaming down her face, trying to regain some control over the situation. Elijah is confused, she tried to explain, her voice trembling. We have problems, like any couple. But this is insane. Of course, the child is his. I looked into her eyes. Those eyes that had once made me lose sleep over love, and now made me lose sleep over pain. Serena, please, no more lies. You know it's impossible. Everyone here knows it now. I turned back to the guests, many of whom were already beginning to stand up, uncomfortable, ready to escape the embarrassing situation. I apologize for involving you in this difficult moment in my life. It was not my intention to cause discomfort. But after years of building a reputation in this city, based on honesty and hard work, I could not allow this farce to continue. I could not accept another man's child as my own. Tyrone, who until then had remained paralyzed in his corner, now tried discreetly to leave through a side door, but he wasn't fast enough. Jamal, recovering from the initial shock, intercepted him with a speed I didn't even know he possessed. Is it true? My son asked, gripping Tyrone's arm tightly. You and my mother? The baby is yours? Tyrone paled even further, if that were possible. He stammered something inaudible, trying to pull away. Simone came down from the stage and approached me. Dad, she said quietly, I think that's enough. Let's go home. But I wasn't finished yet. One last thing, I said, turning to Serena, who was now sitting in a chair, sobbing while a few friends tried to console her. The divorce papers will be served tomorrow. I've already prepared everything. The house stays with you until the child is born. After that, you'll have to find somewhere else. The company is obviously no longer your place of work. With that, I walked off the stage. The crowd parted for me. Some faces showed sympathy, others shock, others a strange respect. I left the venue with my head held high, aware that I had irreversibly changed the course of my life and the lives of everyone involved. The months that followed were not easy. The scandal swept through the city like wildfire. For a few weeks, I was the main topic in every meeting, every coffee shop, every business luncheon. Some criticized me for the public exposure. Others defended me for reacting to such blatant betrayal. The divorce was finalized in record time. Serena didn't contest anything. I think she knew it would be futile after the public exposure. Tyrone lost his job, obviously, and his wife filed for divorce when she found out everything. The baby was born, a boy, and as I imagined, Tyrone did not officially claim paternity, although a DNA test eventually proved the obvious. It took Simone and Jamal some time to process everything that happened. For a few weeks, they barely spoke to me, shocked by the way I had handled the situation. But over time, especially after frank conversations and some family therapy sessions, our relationship strengthened. They understood that despite the drastic method, I was simply defending my dignity. Today, looking back, I don't regret what I did. Perhaps the manner, but not the essence. The truth needed to come out. The lie could not be allowed to prosper. It couldn't become the foundation upon which we would build the future. Serena now lives in a modest apartment with her son, teaching private tutoring to get by. Tyrone moved to another city, starting his life over far from the scandal. And me, I rebuilt my life. The company is doing well, with Simone taking on more and more responsibilities. Jamal graduated and opened his own engineering firm, which frequently provides services to our stores. As for me, I learned to live alone, not to trust so easily, and to value the truth above all else, even when it hurts, even when it would be easier to live in illusion. Did you like my story? If you listened till the end, drop a number 1 in the comments. If you enjoyed it, you can support me by liking the video and sending a small tip. I've got lots of other life stories like this on my channel, so make sure to subscribe and check them out. I've added 2 new stories on screen that everyone loves. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one. With love.